Our guests have arrived. Let's give them a round of applause. Joining me up here today is the king of the monsters, the god of destruction himself, TJ Storm, Godzilla. We also have the heart and soul of Skull Island, the only one Kong will communicate with, Kaylee Hottle, G. And we have Matt Frank, the king of kaiju. Starting out for Mr. TJ Storm. Have you been a lifelong fan of the franchise?
Yes. I'll tell you, first off, hello everybody, and thank you for coming out after well over a year. It's awesome to see all you humans face to face. This is awesome. Godzilla fans too, awesome. Thank you. This is awesome to see you guys. Some of you may have heard me tell this story in the past, but the very first movie that my father ever took me to see was a movie called Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. I was a little kid, and I went to the movie theater, and I looked up on the big screen, and I was like, whoa. And it was amazing. Flash forward several decades, and we are here now. But this is awesome, and I share the love. Thank you for being fans of this amazing franchise, and thank this man for putting this together and bringing us all together yet again. Thanks for being here. This is awesome.
And my next question is for Kaylee. What is it like entering the world of King Kong and Godzilla?
Wow, it was cool. I mean, it was such a different experience because I had never been in anything like that before, and so to get to experience that, it was really cool to see.
So for TJ, could you explain a little bit about what the process of bringing Godzilla to life is like?
Well, there's two parts. There's the creation of the character, which I'm not responsible for, but you have the responsibility to carry on a legacy that is way bigger than yourself. So in 2013, 2012, it was way back then, a friend of mine called and he's like, hey dude, can you give me some people who are good at creature movement or help us with some beast stuff? And I'm like, yeah, here's some names. I was super busy at the time and I didn't know what he needed, but I gave him some names of people that are good at creature movement. He called me about a month later. He's like, dude, you gotta help me with this creature movement. Come in. And I thought he meant come in and help me work with these actors to move in a particular way. I had no idea what the character was or the project was, because when we're working on things are super duper secretive. So they don't let us talk about it. They don't tell us what we're working on until we get there a lot of the time. So I got to the set. It was in the Valley in Los Angeles. And I walked in, and the guy's like, okay, there's three of us standing there in an empty room. You're Muto number one, you're Muto number two, and you're Godzilla. And I was like, okay, sweet. So they're like, okay, let's start figuring out how he moves. I grew up on Godzilla. You know how Godzilla moves, but you know your version of Godzilla. There are, what, 4 generations of Godzilla? There's 4 generations, and they all move a little different. One even dances. So they're all different. So I'm like, okay, what? And they didn't have a character model yet, which means we didn't know what he looked like. They were still choosing which version he looked like. So we were guessing. So I'm like, okay, like this? He's like, no, he doesn't have Tyrannosaurus Rex arms. I'm like, what kind of arms does he have? I don't know. And he has shoulders. So I'm like, okay, so shoulders? Do you like this posture? And they're like, yeah. And also Warner Brothers is like, yeah, do some of that. And so everybody has an opinion. And then you're trying to keep it true to the character. So eventually we ended up with something that looked like this. It started like this. it ended up. And that is kind of where we're at. For those of you guys who don't know, we use technology called motion capture. We put on really tight suits that have markers on them, and we're in a room not much smaller than this, and it's surrounded in like hundreds of cameras. And those cameras are shining infrared light. There's an ocean of infrared light in the room, and all of that light bounces off the markers on my suit and goes back to the cameras, and then that information is translated into the computer. So on the computer, you see the stick figure, and then they take a model and they click it to the stick figure, and now I move the model that looks like Godzilla. So if you've seen the behind the scenes, you've seen some of that. But that's kind of how motion capture works, and that's kind of what we do to create these characters.
Thank you. And now, Kaylee, you're on the other end of the spectrum. What is it like acting against non-existent creatures, such as Kong?
It felt really strange working with the green screen, just talking. It was like talking to myself, basically, because I was in front of a green screen. So, but it was cool. Dad wants to add. He said, she did such a great job because she really added a lot of emotion. You could see that on the green screen. You know, I mean, really, without the green, you couldn't see it with the green screen, but you could see it on the actual screen. All she was looking at was a laser light, and she had to make eye contact with that. But she added so much emotion, and she really did such a great job. She tied so much emotion and love into that, but it really conveyed well on the screen. And she said, thank you.
So, coming from these two different worlds, this question's for both of you guys. Are you surprised at the final result? Is it like, do you know what to expect, or were you blown away when you saw the final result?
You know, I guess I expected it to look like a movie, but I really was surprised. I mean, it exceeded my expectations. I mean, it was amazing. I felt like not qualified, but it was great. It was amazing.
We shoot so far in the past of when the movie actually comes out that you forget all the work you did. And to be honest, it's not really work, it's just kind of me running around going, rah, and it's fun, but you forget because I work on other films, I work on tons of video games, write, voicing things, and more performance capture. So fast forward when the movie finally came out, I'm sitting in the theater and I'm like, oh cool, well, we're gonna see. And so I'm sitting there, and the first movie, it takes a while to see Godzilla, so I was just like, and then finally a foot comes in the frame, I'm like, and hitting it on my friend. And then you start to see all the stuff. But it really hit home because I don't know how they edit things. So at one point, Godzilla got knocked back, and he kind of turns around, and the light in the picture changes, and I was like, what's happening? I don't know what's happening. And I started to hear this, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, what? Boom! I'm like, ah! I just lost my mind. I absolutely. I lost it. I was screaming and crying and jumping up and down like, yes, yes! And the other people there was like, dude, what the? But yeah, it was awesome. That part is spectacular.
So this one's another one that for each of you guys. What has been your favorite scene to film so far?
My favorite scene, really, I had so many. It was such a good movie, but so throughout there was a lot that I loved doing, but I really loved the part where Godzilla and Kong were fighting on the ship. It was such a cool set, and just to do that with the green screen, I loved that part. It was fun. And Dad wants to add in, and he said, what about the part that wasn't in the movie that you really loved doing? What about that part? Tell them about that. And she said, oh yeah, behind the scenes, if you watch it, you can see some of the action that I got to do as well.
shooting this stuff is just stupid fun. I'm gonna let him answer what part he likes in the movie because, look, I get to fight monsters. The entire process is stupidly awesome. But you tell me what part from what movie is your favorite? Because this guy, if you haven't seen his art already, his art is the epitome of Godzilla art. It is freaking beautiful and awesome. If you guys haven't seen it, go to his booth and check it out. This stuff is spectacular. And he lives and breathes Godzilla, and he draws incredible. It's a skill that I wish I had, and I absolutely do not. So you tell us what is it?
Well, I mean, there's so much between those movies that's really awesome. I really like it specifically when Godzilla does something that just leans a little bit more anthropomorphic, leans a little bit more like, because like you talked about earlier, there are a lot of versions of Godzilla that are more, that move differently, either because the actors are being directed to be more comical or to be funnier or do whatever. I mean, you didn't get to dance, but there is a moment in King of the Monsters, the second movie, where it's after Godzilla has come out of the ice and he's facing down with Ghidorah and he's just got all this hatred on his face. But there's a moment when after the two of them have clashed and he's grabbing one of Ghidorah's heads and he's just like, oh, Ghidorah! He's just going to town on it and then he spikes it against the ground, and there's something I could see you in that, and that's where you get that kind of that movement, that little bit of relatable movement when you have a motion capture actor. So yeah, that little moment always sticks out in my head, and stuff like that, like when he'll reel back and then Ghidorah gets him around the throat. There's all that back and forth. You, of course, working with three other great actors who are all playing a different head of Ghidorah, which is hilarious to see in the behind-the-scenes footage. So yeah, that little moment is really fun for me.
So Kaylee, you got to do a lot of location shooting for this movie. Can you tell us a little bit about traveling for Godzilla vs. Kong and what you did at these locations?
Absolutely, yeah, it was such a great experience. We went to Hawaii, we shot some there, various scenes, and then we went to Australia and shot some there. And Dad is saying, but you also got to go to some of the beautiful rainforest there too, or some of the beautiful forests in Australia. And she said, yeah, we got to choose some of that shooting in the forest, I forgot that, but it was so beautiful with the waterfalls and everything. And Dad is saying, the reason why it was a lot of fun, do you want to explain? And she said, yeah, in the movie, you can see when I'm with Kong, that beautiful, luxurious forest, that's where we were. And he said, yeah, that was one of our favorite parts because she actually got to stay in the building and then just got to go outside and see the beauty of Australia. It was exciting. It was wonderful.
So TJ, for many years, you played Godzilla in 2014, and there was not a lot of recognition for that. What is it like being able to share the experience with fans post King of the Monsters now that everybody knows you're Godzilla?
You don't really think about it. It's because you're focused on the work, and by the time the movie comes out, I mean, it's awesome to see the movies, but by the time they come out, you're working on something else. And to be Godzilla, to play something that people get into, you have to become that thing, and you have to put all your mind and all your focus on it. And you can't look up, you can't look around. There's just that thing, and nobody else knows that you're doing it. There's like 20 people that know I'm there doing it. So, yeah, and when the movie comes out, I'm working on something else. So my mind is now in, I almost said some stuff. They own satellites, and I will be lasered. So you're so focused on the new project, the new characters, that it's hard to look up, except for moments like this, and people are like, you did good. And I'm like, thank you. And I really appreciate that. So it makes me feel good, and it makes me aware that people saw it, and hopefully somebody knows that I did it. My mom passed away maybe about 4 years ago, but before she passed away, she understood that I was Godzilla, and she was like, she just nodded. Then she goes, it doesn't look like you. I'm like, Mom. Yeah, those moments when people are like, bruh, I really appreciate your work. That's one of my favorite characters, and that version is my favorite character. You can actually say that to me if you want. That version is my favorite. No, but it means a lot to you, and just to be part of that world is awesome.
And kind of elaborating on that, I know that you've done other fan conventions before, but you've also had the honor of going to Japan, and you were there for Godzilla Fest Japan. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like interacting with Godzilla fans in his homeland?
I wanted you to talk about that specifically. Well, you talk about it first.
Dude. Godzilla in Japan is on a whole nother level. That was awesome. I can't say much more than that. I showed up, and do you guys know who Nakajima-san is? Nakajima-san, Mr. Nakajima, was the original suit actor for Godzilla. He is the original Godzilla. I never got to meet him. But the first person I met when I got there was his daughter, Sonoe. Did I say it correctly? And she was awesome, and she goes, my father would like your work. And I was like, I was done. I was blown away, and that is one of the greatest honors I've ever had. And then they took me out to meet the fans of Godzilla in Japan. There were 20,000 people around the Godzilla statue in Japan. There's a Godzilla statue in the middle of kind of Tokyo, in front of a movie theater. And they had this huge 65th birthday for Godzilla, and I got to talk to them. There were other people there. There were some famous artists there as well. And yes. And he was doing the huge mural, and it was just pure awesome. And then I got to go to Toho, and they showed me all the original Godzilla stuff, which they keep locked up apparently most of the time. And Toho is the owner, the creating production team of the original Godzilla. So they opened the vaults, and I saw the destroyer bomb, and I saw all the stuff, and if you guys know what that is, then you're true Godzilla fans. But all the suits and all of the sculptures and a lot of the stuff, it was pure awesome. I can't say anything more. What do you
I think that I was super jealous of seeing you guys getting to go to that event, specifically that 65th anniversary event, because I was there and watching it, and I'm like, oh man, I know all these people, and I'm not there. But I was very fortunate. Not long after that, I got to have a signing at the Godzilla store in Tokyo. And because I just had a new Godzilla book come out, that was a Godzilla comic I had done back in 2011, 2012, and they had just released it in Japanese. And apparently, I think I was the first person to have a signing at the Godzilla store, because when my publisher requested it, they were like, "Well, you want to have a signing in the store? What?" And then they so they were like, "Oh, okay." So they had me come in, and I was sitting there thinking like, I'm some gaijin, no one's gonna care, like. And then I come in, and there was a line out the door, and I'm like, okay, cool, that's fine. And I was sitting there, and I was just cranking out autographs for people. I had several very, very young fans come up who were young Japanese fans who were like, King of the Monsters was their first Godzilla movie, and now they're like fans. Like they're going back and watching all the old movies now, which is super fun. And I was thinking about you in that moment, and I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. And then it was funny because not long after that, this is, of course, right when the lockdowns happened, but they still asked for it. Toho asked me to do, because they saw what a response that I'd had at the Godzilla store, they asked me to help in their revival of the Godzilla Hamtaro crossover. If anybody remembers that. From 2001. Yeah, they have little Hamtaro in a little Godzilla costume and stuff, and so I drew that, and I did some other stuff for it, and they held off on it for a little while, but they finally released it, but it was because of that and that and that and that and that, so it was a good time. It's really fun going to Japan and being amongst your fellow fans. We gotta get y'all to Japan.
Kaylee, has there been any special fan interactions that you've had that have made an impression on you?
I mean, all of them inspire me. Really, this is my second convention, and I'm honored to be here. I mean, I'm a fan myself, and so I just feel like it's cool. I love all of them. Just love all of you.
And then, Kaylee, this was your first major motion picture. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like working on your first film and what it's like acting against other major stars?
Absolutely. Mostly, I loved getting to be Millie. I've seen some of her other work, but really, more so my friends have seen her work, and so when I got to meet her, I wasn't as excited as probably other people would have been. I was like, that's cool, and anyway, but then I went back and told my friends, and now I'm excited knowing who she is and like what she's all about. It was nice. And also, it was so cool to get to work with the other big name stars as well, of course, in my first major production. And Dad is saying, what about, did any of the stars talk with you? Were they friendly? Like, what did that interaction look like? And she said, oh yeah, they were super sweet. They really made an effort to talk to me, even though they were hearing and I was deaf, and it could be difficult. Like, they really put in the effort, and I thought that was nice of them. And Josh was saying, yeah, I was impressed with how much they really tried to work with Kaylee, because many of them had never met a deaf person before, but they wanted to learn more about her language, about her culture. It truly impressed us. It made a big difference, and it really blessed us.
Could you tell us a little bit about what it was like sharing this experience with your classmates?
I mean, it wasn't bad. It was mostly, they cheered me on the work that I was doing in the movie, and so when I came back, I mean, it was just pretty normal, honestly. It was the same. And Dad once to add in, he said, really, a lot of her friends didn't realize what a big production this was going to be. They knew she was acting, and they thought that was cool, but then when they saw the movie and the scale of it on the big screen, that made a big impact, that made it a little bit harder going back to normal afterward, right? And she said, yeah, I mean, after I got done acting, I came back, it was probably a year or two before it was released. And so then, once the movie was released and I went back to school, I still feel like it was the same.
And then for TJ, if there was any other kaiju that you could act against, who would it be? And if there was any other kaiju you could play, who would you want to play?
I don't want to play anybody else. But I wouldn't mind having a crack at Destroyer.
I mean, what about Hedorah, the smart monster? Ooh, there you go. It's turtley friend.
Can you guys tell me what the thing is with Gamera? What? It's a turtle. Tell me what is.
Here's what you don't understand about Gamera. So, I worked on the Gamera box set for Arrow. I did all the art for it. I did a commentary track for it. I know my turtles. And some of Gamera's movies are better than Godzilla's. Oh! Not yours. Come at me! What do I get? No, I think it would be awesome if they actually brought Gamera into the MonsterVerse. But the thing is that for a little while, especially in the 60s, Gamera's movies were more popular than Godzilla's because they were appealing directly to kids. Like Gamera was what really like where you have the little kid sidekick who's like, I understand the monster, don't hurt the monster. That was Gamera's thing before it was Godzilla's, and that's what really solidified the monster as a popular figure. And then in the 90s, they got a bunch of people from the anime industry to come in and remake Gamera, and those movies are awesome. Those are highly recommend those. One of the main guys working on it was Shinji Higuchi, who was the storyboard artist on Evangelion, and then he did the special effects for the Gamera trilogy, and then he co-directed Shin Godzilla. So the guy, he's a major force so those movies are awesome. And then they made a delightful kids movie, Gamera, in 2006, and that movie is wonderful. And so Gamera's got a whole thing, and I think it would be awesome to see you throw them around a little bit.
All right, so who likes Gamera? Okay, who likes Hedorah? You can't raise your hand twice, wait? And who likes Destroyer?
Kaylee, while you were working on Godzilla vs. Kong, you got to do a little bit of your own stunts. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like?
We had stunt people there who were ready to double for me, but I was like, no, I want to do it myself, you know? I really wanted to get in on the action, and so there were a couple of things where they wouldn't let me, but there were some things where they let me do my own stunts, parts of them. Like, for example, I got to swim. That was what I really loved doing, was swimming. You know, especially when we were in a pool, but for the elevator scene that you saw on the ship in the movie, it looks so real, but it's funny because, you know, I mean, in real life we were just in a pool, but in the movie it looks super real.
I want to know about the scene they wouldn't let her do.
Like, for example, there was a part where I was staying with Rebecca, and they were dropping rocks, and I really wanted to be there, but I mean, they were fake rocks, of course, but you know. Anyway, and I was supposed to fall over, and so you don't see it in the movie actually, but anyway, they told me no, I couldn't do that part.
How old are you? She is amazing. She is awesome.
All right, so I think if you guys have any questions, now's the time. So anybody who has questions, raise your hand and I'll come around.
So my question is for TJ. For Godzilla vs. Kong, what made them decide to not do the motion capture and just do it all, I guess, computerized? Because you had mentioned that you didn't do the motion capture for that. Like, what changed between King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong?
Well, the director. So above all, when the director changes, the entire team can change. So beyond that, I have no idea. There's a lot of hyper-violence between the creatures. So I can guess that some of that isn't done with real people because it's hyper-violent. I don't know if you can snap a person back and forth that fast, but you can keyframe it. That's the other kind of animation, is just, you know, drawing with your hands and doing it in the computer. And you can do that very well. They may have used people, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, the directing team changed, so yeah.
TJ, what is it like seeing your Godzilla defeat Kong?
This is the way.
In the Monsterverse, why did y'all decide to make Godzilla's fire coming up slower than it usually does?
Man, first off, everybody's a critic. You know, I think, no, it's a good question. I think because when you're playing video games, they try to balance all of the characters a particular way. So, number one, it gives a bit of balance. Number two, it gives drama. You know the thing's about to happen because you see it happening. The whoa, 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 rah. You can. Yes. So you can see the event happening, which means for later, when you first they show you this is how it works. This is what it does when it works. It's very, very powerful. Later, you see it coming up, and then the enemy is like, I don't think I like this, and it moves out of the way like Ghidorah did. Ghidorah has fought Godzilla in the past, and he knows what that means. So his head's moved out of the way, and I didn't hit the target. So, and then there's the axe. I don't know where you get an axe like that, but apparently that stops atomic breath. So there's that. But no, so it gives drama and lets you know what's coming, and then it gives you a chance to tell a different kind of story when you do it.
I have a question for TJ. Aside from Godzilla, what are some of your other favorite performances that you've done?
Every time I get to do, I work on a lot of video games. Those are a blast. It's a lot of work. But in films, when you get to, because I grew up on films and I love going to the movies. I was depressed over the last year because I couldn't go to the movies. But I have been Iron Man in Captain America Civil War. I fight Bucky and Captain America in that scene. So that's a lot of me doing some performances. And those are augmented. There are also real people on the set doing them, but then they come back and they're like, all right, they did the scene, but Iron Man doesn't move like Iron Man because he's a little too fluid, so can you do the performance and make that look better? So I'm doing the shot where he hits the shield and all of that stuff. We do a lot of that stuff, and that was really fun. I am the Alpha Predator in The Predator, the really big one. Thank you. And to be, did anybody grow up on Predator? Yeah, you know. So when you grow up watching something like that, and then they're like, could you come in and we want to talk to you? I'm like, all right. And I don't know what it is, and they're like, so, The Predator. And I'm like, trying to be totally pro, but I'm like, so yeah, I get to do that. I've been Baby Groot. I've been Teenage Groot. I think I chopped my arm off to give Thor his axe handle, Stormbreaker. I'm Colossus in Deadpool. I get to work on there's characters that I'm Darth Vader in Vader Immortal and Jedi Fallen Order. There's lots of things I'm sure I'm forgetting, but that kind of stuff just blows you away. To get to be a part of those worlds is absolutely amazing, and Godzilla is like the cream of the cake. It's the icing.
Hi, this question is for Kaylee and TJ. Now that you are part of this world, the Godzilla world, and for you, TJ, all the other ones you just listed, do both of you find yourselves now having to do homework on, like in this case, it's Godzilla now. And for Kaylee, Godzilla has a history, obviously, that she has to do a lot of studying for to answer questions with fans and whatnot. And for you, TJ, because yours is more extensive, which of those do you like the best, or really have drawn to, and maybe, or don't like? You're like, yeah, I'm a part of that one, but I just can't. You said Gamera. You're like, really? What's the thing with Gamera? It's just one of those things, So that's my question: is do you find yourself having to study now so that you can answer questions to fans? That loyalty that's there, like, well, I should know this. I should know this about Godzilla. I don't want to be stumped. That's it.
Honestly, monsters weren't my thing, and so I didn't do any homework. I'm sorry.
Monsters are my thing. I was the biggest nerd before it was cool to be a nerd. I was really tall. I grew out of my own pants, so I had high water pants, and I was playing D&D in the back of the classroom. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's Dungeons and Dragons. I was a mega nerd. It was not pretty. My mom put me into martial arts when I was a kid to make me a little bit cooler, but it didn't work. So eventually, the rest of me caught up a little bit, but yeah, I love this stuff. Now, as far as homework, I don't do homework to impress the fans. I can't. There's too much to know. I'll be honest. Since Ninja Scrolls, I've never watched another anime. I hear that gasp. But I'm getting ready to, so I asked for a list of the top like 3. Somebody said something about Bleach, or I can't remember what it was. But I gotta start watching something. Cowboy Bebop. They said Cowboy Bebop and Trigun. And okay, I'm gonna add that. But I can't. They're Full Metal Alchemist. Is that what it is? So. What? Brotherhood too. Don't forget that part. Brotherhood. Don't worry about it. Thank you. So you can't know everything. That was not my thing. Even though I grew up in Hawaii, that wasn't my primary thing. I love monsters and fantasy and superheroes. I read comic books. I lived in the comic book store. I just loved comic books. I read novels. I read something called the Belgariad and the Dragons of Kryn and all of that stuff. Drist, I don't know if you know who Drist Duradin is. So I grew up on that kind of stuff. But I do research for my work. So when they told me the new Godzilla was gonna be there, I got out my phone and I started watching footage of all the other Godzilla. I needed to know what they had done before me and refreshing, because I wasn't watching for the Godzilla movement, I was just enjoying the movie. But now I had to look at Godzilla very specifically. When they called me for Darth Vader, yes, I've watched all of the Star Wars movies, but now I have to go back and realize that Vader doesn't turn his head. He can't. The helmet's too big. So I had to learn to to turn my head and shoulders in a very particular way, which is very particular to Vader. I had to learn how he sword fights. He's not flashy. He does not do that stuff. He can augment his speed with the Force. I'm just gonna go full nerd in a second. I'm not gonna go there. But he doesn't twirl and stuff like that. That's not his thing. So you want to stay true to the character that came before you, to the performances that came before you. That is where the research goes.
Hello, this is a question for all of you guys. So, out of all of the MonsterVerse films or lore, which is your favorite Titan?
Favorite what?
Titan?
Yes, your favorite Titan from the MonsterVerse.
Titan. Okay. Okay. I mean, the obvious answer would be Godzilla. But there you go. And the obvious answer would be, oh yeah. So I think that answers those two. Yeah. But if I can join my fellow, and I also love Kong as well. You know, I grew up loving Kong as well. I really got into Kong back in 2005 with the Peter Jackson version. That's a really good one too. But then they started throwing in all these other times. I'm gonna guess there's a couple of Mothra fans in the house. There you go. Yeah. What do my friends and I say? All glory to our resplendent lady. And yes, and then you've got, you got Rodan and you have Mechagodzilla, these other classic characters who are awesome. And then they started making original stuff, like Behemoth, who's a giant sloth with tusks. That's cool. That was the one that really jumped out at me. Do you have a favorite?
Team Kong all the way.
Oh! He has a Godzilla channel. That's everybody's new favorite Titan, I guess. All right then. I don't know if you want.
You can just tell he roots for Team Kong as well.
What the hell is that? Is that a honey badger? That was awesome.
Dad is saying that could be her new role. I love Godzilla, but I'm sorry, don't be mad at me. You know, Kong is my favorite, no other.
Are there any final thoughts or closing statements you guys have to say?
I just want to say thank you so much to the fans who came and, you know, were willing to come and meet me and get signatures and everything. I couldn't do this without you. And that's the thing. I'm wondering, since we asked about Godzilla, how many of you are Team Kong? There you go, there you go.
I mean, if Godzilla was really cool, you'd think that he could beat Mechagodzilla.
I just blew a hole through the earth to the center. I was out of breath, so just whatever. No, yeah, you guys, thank you for being part of this thing that we all love. We're all in this together. We are fans, and we love this stuff. That's what makes it magic. That's what makes it fun for me to go to work. Is because I love this stuff. This is really, really fun for me to do. I put on the suit, and then I pretend to be that guy. And that is freaking awesome. To share it in the theater with people screaming and cheering. Have you guys been in the theater with people who love the movie and they lose their mind when the things happen? I'm in that same theater with you, and that makes it freaking awesome. And not just because I played them, just because I love it. So thank you guys for being part of my childhood and my adulthood and my world.
I will say that I sort of crashed this panel a little bit, so I'm just really grateful to be here with both of y'all, TJ is incredible. He is just one of the kindest people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. He does incredible work at carrying on the tradition of the character, you know. A person in Godzilla, a person being Godzilla is a huge part of it. And Kaylee is the breakout star of Godzilla vs. Kong. I mean, let's all just be honest about that. Look at her, she knows. But what happened? Okay. It's already been a really incredible first day. We've had a lot of traffic on all three of our tables, and we're all down there next to the Godzilla store pop-up. So if you haven't been there yet, come by to say hi. And Derek and I are going to have a panel tomorrow, and we're going to yell about really nerdy Godzilla stuff.
For sure.
If you don't know who Megaguirus is, get out of here and watch it here, or you can come and learn. It's at 4, right?
I believe so.
I think it's we've had some scheduling problems, but we think it's at 4 tomorrow in this room, isn't it? Yep.
You can check the Anime Matsuri app to find out more. Well, I want to thank you guys all for coming. We really appreciate you guys being out here. Huge thank you to our guests. We can't thank you enough. Let's give a round of applause. If anybody's interested to hear more from me, you guys can check me out on YouTube, DMan1954. Until next time, see you guys all later.